She walked into the courtroom smiling, like this was not a hearing, not a serious case, not a place where people's lives could change forever, but just another room where her money, her confidence, and her family name would protect her from consequences. The cameras were not there for a celebrity trial. The courtroom was not packed with reporters, but still, everyone noticed her the moment she entered. Her heels clicked against the floor. Her designer bag rested on her arm, and her face carried the kind of smile that made people uncomfortable, not because it was warm, but because it looked rehearsed. Across the room sat a quiet woman named Maria, a single mother who looked like she had barely slept in days. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, her eyes stayed low, and beside her was a small folder filled with papers, receipts, photos, and one letter she had written but never thought anyone powerful would read. This case had started with something small, at least on paper, a dispute over unpaid damages, insults, and a public confrontation outside an apartment building. But inside that courtroom, it was clear this was not really about money. It was about humiliation. It was about someone being treated like they were invisible. And it was about whether a person with less money still deserved the same respect as someone who walked in, believing the courtroom already belonged to her. The judge entered, and everyone stood. The smiling woman, whose name was Vanessa, stood a little late, almost casually, as if even that rule was optional for her. The judge noticed but said nothing. That silence was important. Some judges shout early, some judges warn early, but this judge had a different way of handling people who thought they were smarter than the room. She let them talk. She let them reveal themselves. Vanessa's lawyer began first, explaining that his client was a respectable businesswoman, a property owner, and someone who had only reacted after being provoked. He used careful words, polished words, words designed to make a cruel moment sound like a misunderstanding. Vanessa nodded along, still smiling, occasionally glancing at Maria as if she expected her to break down before the hearing even truly began. Then the judge turned to Maria and asked her to explain what happened. Maria opened her mouth, but no sound came out. For a few seconds, the courtroom was completely still. She looked at the papers in her folder, then at Vanessa, then down again. Vanessa gave a small laugh under her breath, not loud but loud enough. The judge's eyes moved toward her, but again she said nothing. Maria finally spoke, her voice low and shaking. She explained that she had been late on one payment after her son got sick. She had asked for a few extra days. She had not refused to pay. She had not disappeared. She had simply asked for time. But, according to Maria, Vanessa showed up outside her apartment building, in front of neighbors, in front of her child, and said words that Maria still could not repeat without trembling. Vanessa allegedly told her she was the kind of person who always begs, that people like her should not live in decent buildings, and that if she could not afford respect, she should not expect it. At that point, some people in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa's smile faded for half a second, then returned. Her lawyer quickly objected, saying those words were emotional exaggerations. The judge allowed Maria to continue. Maria said the worst part was not even the insult. The worst part was seeing her little boy standing behind her, hearing every word, asking later if they were bad people because they did not have money. That sentence changed the air in the room. Vanessa looked away for the first time, but only for a moment. Then she leaned toward her lawyer and whispered something, still acting like she was above it all. The judge then asked Vanessa if she wanted to respond. Vanessa sat up straight, adjusted her jacket, and spoke with confidence. She said Maria was dramatic. She said people always used children to gain sympathy. She said she had worked hard for everything she owned and was tired of people making excuses. Every word sounded less like a defense and more like a confession of character. The judge listened without interrupting. Vanessa continued, saying, "Your Honor, I deal with people like her all the time." The courtroom went quiet again. That phrase, "people like her," landed harder than Vanessa expected. The judge leaned back slightly and asked, "People like her?" Vanessa blinked. For the first time, her smile looked uncertain. She tried to explain, saying she meant tenants who do not take responsibility. The judge nodded slowly, then opened the file in front of her. This was the moment Vanessa had not prepared for. The judge pulled out a printed message. She asked Vanessa if the phone number on the document belonged to her. Vanessa looked at her lawyer. Her lawyer looked at the paper. Vanessa said yes, but asked why it mattered. The judge read from the message, not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly enough for the whole courtroom to hear. "Make sure she understands she is lucky I even let someone like her stay here." Maria closed her eyes. Vanessa's face changed. The smile disappeared completely. The judge placed the paper down and asked the question that changed everything. "Mrs. Vanessa, when you wrote 'someone like her,' what exactly did you mean?" No one moved. No one coughed. Even the lawyer stopped writing. Vanessa opened her mouth, but this time her confidence was gone. She tried to say the message was taken out of context. The judge asked again, calmly, "What did you mean?" Vanessa's eyes moved around the courtroom, searching for an escape, but there was none. The same room she had entered like a stage had become a mirror, and for the first time she had to look at herself. The judge then turned to Maria and asked about the letter in her folder. Maria hesitated, then handed it to the bailiff. The judge read it silently. Her expression softened, but her voice stayed steady. The letter was not a demand for money. It was not revenge. It was something Maria had written to her son after that public humiliation, trying to explain that being poor did not mean being worthless, that asking for help did not mean losing dignity, and that one person's cruelty did not define who they were. When the judge finished reading, she did not immediately speak. That pause was more powerful than any speech. Then she looked at Vanessa and said, "The law can decide damages, but this court also pays attention to conduct, and today, your conduct has spoken very loudly." Vanessa's eyes filled with panic, not sadness, panic. She realized this was no longer just about winning. It was about being seen. The judge ordered compensation for the damages Maria had proven, but then she did something even more important. She made it clear that the courtroom would not reward intimidation disguised as authority. She told Vanessa that owning property did not mean owning people's dignity. She told her that respect was not something reserved for the rich, the powerful, or the polished. It was the minimum owed to every person who stood before the court. Maria began crying silently, not because the money solved everything, but because someone had finally said out loud what she had been too tired to keep defending. Vanessa sat frozen, her designer bag now looking smaller somehow, her posture no longer proud. The hearing ended, but no one rushed to leave, because everyone in that courtroom had watched something rare happen. They had watched a woman walk in smiling, certain that her status would protect her, and they had watched one simple question remove the mask. What did you mean by someone like her? And sometimes, in a courtroom, justice does not begin with a sentence, a fine, or a punishment. Sometimes it begins with a question so honest that the person being asked can no longer hide from the truth.